Hello everyone, in this video I want to show you the performance of this MacBook Pro 7.1 that I tuned using throttle stop and a lot of tweaks on Windows to get it usable in 2026. So here's a couple of Geekbench runs. Every one of these takes more than 20 minutes, so these are my last two scores, and I have many more, but they were recorded in different stages of the tuning. I can just show you how long it takes to open Firefox, where some of those other results are stored. And we can also take a look at the responsiveness of this machine, which is, to me, very, very usable, even considering it's 2026. That's more than 18 years. This machine is probably nearing. No, it's not 18. It's 17 because it's 2009. Well, anyways, it's almost legally eligible to drinking alcohol in Italy. So, anyways, this is one of the first results. Previously, with less tuning than the last stages, and yeah, this was just to show Firefox opening up and doing stuff, and I think it's nice. Keep in mind that my Wi-Fi is awful. So you might have problem with loading because of the Wi-Fi speeds, but this machine doesn't have a standard MPCI slot, so I cannot swap it easily with a more up-to-date Wi-Fi card, which I already tested in other machine from similar age with normal Windows machines, normal PCs, and I found that to improve a lot with the responsiveness. Well, scrolling is easy. I can easily scroll also with a trackpad, with a touchpad, and yeah, everything is very nice. So I'll show you some more benchmark results from other tests that I've done. The Silver Bench CPU benchmark, I went as far as 4700. Speedpower.run. Oh, the machine, I think, cleared the cache, so I can try test it again. Oh no, here it is. 86. I got 86. Most of the time it scores 86. This is Web Expert 5, and the test always shows 22. Even before tuning it was maybe 21 sometimes. Speedometer 3.1, and yeah, these are some of the online benchmarks that I tested. So the machine was not opened up. I didn't repaste it, as the time it takes to do such things in these old machines is too long to justify. And also, sometimes I find that those machines have some maybe corrosion, some water damage in some areas, on some cables, and that could result in the machine still working, but not surviving any disconnect or reconnection of the cable. So you can end up with a machine that is not working anymore after you try to touch those cables. So since I have throttle stop, that allows me to run the machine a lot better than stock, and still under 90 degrees. Even during this Cinebench stress test, I never got up over 90 degrees. I feel it's perfectly fine not to repaste it. I don't think it's worth the effort. I also put some glue on the speaker here on the subwoofer to prevent it from rattling. This of course killed the volume, but also made a much better sound, much more usable machine. Otherwise it would rattle a lot during music playback. And another area that I don't want to touch again is the RAM slots. This machine has one non-functioning slot, the one on the bottom, the one closer to the keyboard. It would detect the other slot maybe once every 10 boots. So I decided to just take out the two modules that they were in and put a single 4 GB 1333 mega transfers. So this is higher than the maximum supported speed of for this machine with two slots occupied, but it works fine with only one slot occupied. It didn't even ever crash. Okay, so the system is installed in legacy mode. This makes the boot a lot longer than UEFI, but saves a lot of headache when you have to configure the graphics card. It is a problem with UEFI installation on these machines where you have black screen as soon as you install the graphics driver, and you don't have brightness control. And so I went with the legacy install. I know there are some workarounds for UEFI installs on these, but I didn't want to go through it. So I had to create a 33H2 SSD using another machine. There are other ways around this to create it, to get the SSD ready for the machine. Some people suggested on some comments on YouTube to boot the USB installer in UEFI, but then manually configure the installation to be legacy MBR, but I didn't try that. So after installing in legacy mode the system, I had to install all the bootcamp drivers. And the reason to do that is to have brightness control and volume control through the FN keys. I was not able to get them working just by installing the keyboard driver from the bootcamp package, so I had to install the whole bootcamp software, which includes a tray icon on the bottom right that I have now disabled to get better benchmark scores, but I didn't find another way. I didn't try to use Power Toys to manually configure the keys, the function keys. That might be something I will explore in the future. So after downloading the installer using Brigadier, I think. Okay, I'll show you what that is. So let's get to the Brigadier GitHub. This is a tool to download the bootcamp drivers in Windows. So I downloaded the whole package for this machine using Brigadier command line. Then I took out the NVIDIA drivers, as I already knew that I needed more up-to-date drivers. So I went in here and just proceeded to delete the content of the NVIDIA folder here. I mean the GPU driver, the chipset driver is still here. And I did also remove other driver folders for other stuff. I don't remember exactly which ones, but these were for sure not needed for this installation. Well, anyways, the setup just goes on even if you take them out, no problem. It doesn't throw any error. And then I proceeded to install the newest graphics driver for this GPU, and I will explain everything in the guide linked, but this should be the 342.01 as the Google AI suggests here. So from here now on, I also followed this Computer Guy 96 GitHub page, GitHub guide, which is linked to this video. And that was very useful as it provided me for the links for some tweaks that were needed. First of all, you need to install a newer version of the Mac HAL driver .cs, and the link is in his GitHub page. Also set this registry key to have brightness control, and yeah, these two things were very useful. I also downloaded the driver for the Enforce system management controller. I didn't download Mac fans control because I didn't need to control the fans, as I already have throttle stop taking care of the temperature. And then I downloaded some newer driver for the trackpad, the touchpad, not the one that are linked in his video, but this one that were updated 10 hours ago. Interesting. Magic Trackpad 2 Precision Touchpad driver for Windows 11. Now, one of the most important parts of the tutorial is to set up throttle stop properly. So you want to use this area of throttle stop, the one on the left, and you have to turn it on using this button here. You have to make sure that the clock mode is 100% and the multiplier is the highest value here. And then you can slowly go down with the voltage until it's stable, until it's not stable anymore, until it crashes. You set the value to the lowest possible that is stable on Windows and then start testing. I used Geekbench to test, and this was my final stable voltage. And this voltage that was stable during Geekbench also provided to be stable after every other test that I run. So this machine is currently still, for some reason, not keeping the CPU at 100% all the time. I have no idea why it doesn't do that, even though I forced him to do that. But if I do set it to 100% all the time, I still get better scores, even though it's still moving here. So here in the control panel, which is the old interface for this, I open the power settings and modify the power settings to have the minimum processor always at 100%. Here it is. So I do this as the voltage is already set to a fixed value here, so this voltage will never change even if the CPU throttles itself. So there is really no need to waste the computer like power processing to also regulate the frequency. which I don't know, it still shows as it's doing it, but whatever. I then run a power setting explorer to set the highest possible timer for the CPU processing check, some kind of thing like that. You have to find the precise wording in English. This program is really simple, and it doesn't really help with finding the exact set parameter you need, and the names are very confusing. In Italian it's called intervallo di controllo prestazioni del processore. That's it. And I set it to 5000 for all the possible combinations. I disabled the meltdown protection for the CPU. So this is a workaround to address one security vulnerability that is basically impossible to exploit, so I didn't care. And this improved the performance in my testing, maybe about more than 2%, I would say, between 4 and 2%. I run both Chris Titus and Refire debloating scripts. Now, the settings for these scripts are a bit up to you. You have to decide for yourself a couple of things. But I set display for performance, set classic right-click menu, disable background apps, disable consumer features, telemetry, and some Bing search in start menu, and recommendations in start menu, showing file extensions and hidden files, and a couple of other tweaks were done in the Refire script. They are very similar, just different setup. And then in the end I actually set up the system using Atlas OS, which is a more full comprehensive script. I run the version 4.0.4 because it's the last one supporting 23H2. 23H2 is the last system that is compatible with this machine because of the instruction sets limits. Newer version of Windows will require some instruction sets that are not supported by the CPU. And moving to Atlas OS didn't really improve that much after all of the other tweaks that I did. I would say that, okay, let's reboot the system again. And I didn't save more than 100 megabytes at boot, so that's not much. I was able to get, so the machine at the beginning with stock Windows was using around 2 gigabytes at boot, 2.1, 2.2 sometimes. Then after all the scripts from Chris Titus and Refire, I was getting around 1.4 gigabyte used on boot. And now after doing also Atlas OS, I sometimes boot at 1.3, sometimes boot at 1.4. So that's not that much actually. And doing all these tests was how I discovered that I actually had 8 gigabytes installed in the system, but this would show only once after, like, yeah, when I was checking, I only saw 8 gigabytes once, and then all the other boots I would only see 4, and that's how I realized that one of the slots of the machine was actually broken. It's sad to have these long boot times because of the legacy install of Windows. Another thing that happens with this machine that I forgot to mention is that sometimes the graphics driver hangs. Now, I didn't find like a real reason for it to happening like during random operation. It doesn't really happen, but it always happens if you put the system to any kind of sleep or you turn off the display, and sometimes it happens on boot. This is very rare, so it's something that you really shouldn't bother that much. It maybe happened to me twice that I had the system boot up to a black screen, and when that happens, I have to use this combination of keys. So Shift, Control, Command B. As you can see, it didn't happen here. I mean, it happened only twice, I think, at boot. But it always happens if you set the display to sleep. So I disabled sleep for the display, not entirely, because I set it to 5 hours, just in case I forget the computer on, so the display doesn't kill itself. But I set the timer to 5 hours. And I will now restore the boot camp notification tray icon on the bottom right to have working FN keys again, to have brightness keys and volume keys and keyboard brightness keys working again. Yeah, also just to mention, I didn't want to run this on video, but I got 133 as the best Cinebench scores without the notification tray, and I get maybe 129, 130 if I have the notification tray active. And here with the notification tray active, I can set the brightness for the display. Yeah, maybe. Interesting. Well, that doesn't work if I don't restart the computer, apparently. Let me check again. Okay, no. Keyboard brightness works. It is actually working. I can have different levels of brightness here, and volume key works. So I guess I've broken the brightness control at some point. Maybe I have to reapply the key. It still works here. That's interesting. Let's reboot. Okay, after rebooting the system, it is actually working. Okay, another final point that I want to make. Let's now navigate the menus in real time to show how responsive that is that by default Atlas OS disables the shadows for all the system stuff, all the panels and windows, but I don't like that. I think that having a little bit of separation between different layers helps with perception of different windows. So I will show shadows again for Windows and mouse pointer. And yeah, I guess that is really all for this video. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope it can help you with actually making use of these old machines that are still pretty nice. The best thing about these machines is sure the trackpad is still